Have you ever thought about, you know how families are kind of like their own little worlds, like with their own like gravity and orbits and stuff?
Mm.
We're going to be looking at a family today and really like getting deep into their story. We're going to be using something called structural family therapy to kind of see how it all works.
Yeah.
SFT.
Yeah.
It's a way of understanding families as like systems
Exactly.
where everybody's behavior kind of like affects everybody else,
Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
like a chain reaction.
It really is. In SFT, we talk a lot about families trying to find this balance. Like, you want to feel close, right? But you also need your own space. And sometimes the way that families try to find that balance can actually create problems.
Oh, that's so interesting. So it's not always about one person being the problem. It's about like the whole family dynamic.
Exactly.
Like how everyone's relating to each other.
Right. A lot of times families will come in for therapy and they're really focused on one person, the so-called identified patient. But SFT suggests that we zoom out a little bit and look at the bigger picture, the family structure itself.
Like a mechanic. You know how a mechanic wouldn't just fix like a squeaky wheel without checking the whole car's alignment, right?
Perfect analogy.
Yeah.
Yeah, so today we're diving into the case of the Bensons. We've got Joel and Landis, the parents, and their two kids, Lisa, who's 19, and Joel Jr., who's 17.
Okay, so what's going on with the Bensons? What brings them to therapy?
Well, Lisa's the one that everyone's concerned about. Think, classic teenage rebellion, skipping school, fighting with her parents, maybe even like dabbling in things she shouldn't be.
Oh, I'm already sensing some tension.
Yeah.
How are her parents reacting to all this?
Yeah, from the information we have, it seems like they've tried everything. Stricter rules, more punishments, nothing seems to be working. Joel, the dad, is described as pretty distant and strict.
Okay.
While Landis, the mom, tries to balance things out by being more lenient.
Ooh, so you got that good cop, bad cop thing going on?
Exactly.
That's tough. It can create a lot of confusion. Yeah, mixed messages for sure. What about Joel Jr.? Where does he fit in all of this?
Now, here's where it gets interesting. Joel Jr. is the golden child. Straight A's. Involved in all the right activities. Never any trouble. So right away, an SFT therapist would start thinking about those family subsystems we talked about, those smaller units within the family, like the parent-child relationship or the sibling dynamic.
Right, so you've got the parents as a unit, the kids as a unit, and then each individual is their own unit.
You got it.
Okay. And SFT looks at how those units interact. Are the boundaries between them healthy? Are they too close? Or are they too distant?
Okay, I think I see where you're going with this. So you're wondering, is Lisa rebelling because her parents are too strict and controlling? Or maybe because their parenting styles are so different. And maybe Joel Jr. is doing so well because he's getting a lot of positive attention for being the good kid.
That's exactly the kind of thinking an SFT therapist would be doing. They'd be looking for those patterns, those clues about how the family structure is contributing to Lisa's behavior. So let's play detective here. What are some specific clues in the Benson's case that might hint at these, unhealthy boundaries or power imbalances?
Well, one detail that stands out is that Lisa thought she had a B average in school, when in reality she was failing most of her classes.
Oh, wow.
So that could suggest a lack of clear communication, maybe even like a disconnect from reality.
Yeah, that's pretty significant. Like, if she's not even aware of how she's doing in school, what else might she be missing?
Right. And then there's the fact that Joel and Landis have been escalating their punishments over the years, but Lisa's behavior hasn't changed.
Right.
So that suggests that their approach might be too rigid. Maybe they're afraid to let go of control.
And what about Landis always making up for Joel's strictness? It seems like that would just create more confusion for the kids, wouldn't it?
Absolutely. Inconsistent parenting can be really challenging for kids to navigate. It's like they never know what to expect, which can lead to anxiety and insecurity. And that, in turn, can contribute to acting out behaviors.
This is already making me think about my own family dynamics. We'll be back in just a minute to continue our deep dive into the Bensons and how an SFT therapist would actually help them. That thing about Lisa and her grades, it just makes you wonder about the communication in that family.
Oh, totally.
Like, are they really talking to each other?
It makes you think, huh. And it might also point to what we call enmeshment in SFT.
Enmeshment.
Yeah. It's when family members are so close, like their boundaries get all blurry. You know what I mean? Like their emotions and experiences are all mixed up.
So it's like being too close to the point where it's not healthy anymore.
Right, exactly. I imagine like two trees growing so close together that their branches get all tangled up.
Okay.
It might seem kind of nice at first, all cozy and intertwined. But eventually, one or both of those trees might start to suffer.
They need their own space to like breathe and grow.
Exactly. So in Lisa's case, maybe she's acting out to try and create some space for herself, to separate a little bit from her family.
Right, like she's pushing against those branches.
Yeah, pushing against those boundaries.
Trying to break free.
Exactly.
But then you have Joel Jr., who seems totally comfortable in all that closeness. Is it possible that he's actually struggling too, just in a different way?
That's a really good question. And a good SFT therapist would definitely be thinking about that. Because it's not uncommon for the good child to feel this pressure to stay perfect, to avoid rocking the boat. They might even feel guilty for any success that they have, knowing that their sibling is struggling.
Wow.
Yeah.
So even though he seems fine on the surface, he might actually be dealing with his own challenges.
Right. It's all connected.
Because of the family dynamics.
Exactly. And remember, it's not about blaming anyone. It's about understanding how everyone is being affected by the system.
Right. Okay, so let's say the Bensons decide to try SFT. Like, how would a therapist actually help them, like, untangle this whole mess?
Well, the first step would be to get everyone talking. And I mean, really talking. Not just about Lisa's behavior, but about their feelings, their needs, their fears.
So it's less about, like, lecturing or giving advice, and more about creating a space where everyone feels safe.
Exactly.
And to be honest.
Exactly. A safe space for open and honest communication.
Okay.
An SFT therapist might use a technique called reframing, where they help the family see their problems from a different perspective.
Reframing.
Yeah. Like instead of saying, Lisa's being defiant, they might say, Lisa's feeling unheard. Or Lisa's trying to communicate something.
Oh, I see.
You see, sometimes just shifting the language a little bit can change the whole dynamic.
Wow, that's powerful.
It is. And once everyone feels heard and understood, the therapist can start working with them on specific skills, like active listening, expressing emotions effectively, resolving conflict constructively.
So it's almost like teaching them a whole new language.
That's a great way to put it.
For interacting with each other.
Yeah. And remember, it's not about fixing Lisa. It's about helping the whole family communicate better and build healthier relationships.
Right. So what about those boundaries? How would a therapist help them create clearer boundaries?
That's a key part of the process. They might help Joel and Landis present a united front as parents. So there's less confusion about the rules.
Okay.
They might encourage Lisa to create some healthy distance between herself and her parents, maybe by spending more time with friends or pursuing her own interests.
Okay.
And they might work with Joel Jr. to express his own needs and feelings, so he doesn't feel pressured to always be the good child.
It sounds like a delicate balancing act, helping everyone feel connected,
Yeah,
but also giving them the space to be individuals.
it is.
But is it realistic to expect families to change these patterns? Like, habits are hard to break, right?
You're absolutely right. Change doesn't happen overnight. But SFT therapists have some pretty cool techniques to help families actually shift those patterns.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Like what?
One really interesting technique is called enactment. It's where the family actually acts out their typical patterns of interaction right there in the therapy session.
Whoa, wait, so they like have a fight in front of the therapist?
It can be a bit like that, but in a safe and controlled environment. The therapist acts as a kind of referee, observing the family's dynamics, pointing out unhealthy patterns, and helping them try out new ways of interacting.
It's like practice for real life.
Practice for real life.
That's pretty brilliant.
Right. It's
Yeah.
like they're getting on-the-spot coaching on how to communicate more effectively, resolve conflict without yelling, and actually listen to each other's perspectives.
I'm picturing my own family trying this,
Yeah.
and it's both hilarious and terrifying at the same time.
I think that's a common reaction. It's not always easy to confront those ingrained family dynamics.
Yeah.
But it can be incredibly rewarding in the long run.
Yeah. Okay, so through reframing, communication skills training, and even a little bit of family drama therapy, the Bensons are starting to make some progress. What kind of long-term impact might this have on their lives? We'll explore that in our final segment, so stick around.
I've been thinking about, like, what happens after the therapy, you know?
If the Bensons really put in the work, like, what could their family look like down the road?
That's what's so exciting about this work. It's not just about putting out fires. It's about helping families create a whole new way of being together.
So, like, paint me a picture. Let's say it's a year later. The Bensons have been doing SFT. What does their family dinner look like?
Okay, so imagine this. Everyone's actually listening to each other at the dinner table. Joel and Landis are like a team now, you know?
Mm-hmm.
They're making decisions together. Lisa's talking about her day. She's sharing her dreams and her frustrations. And nobody's freaking out or judging her.
Wow.
And Joel Jr.'s there, too. He's telling jokes. He's even admitting that he's not perfect.
Huh. It's like a completely different family.
Right. It's all about shifting those patterns.
But what about Lisa's behavior? Will she, magically become a straight-A student?
Well, SFT isn't about magic. It's about giving people the space and the tools to grow. Lisa might still make mistakes. You know, she might still push boundaries. But the hope is that she'll do it in a way that's more healthy and more about expressing who she really is.
So instead of rebelling against her family, maybe she'll be rebelling against, I don't know, societal expectations or something.
Exactly. Or maybe she'll start advocating for herself more. Within the family, you know? Communicating her needs directly instead of acting out.
That makes sense. And what about Joel Jr.? How would he benefit from all of this change?
Well, maybe he'll finally feel comfortable taking off that perfect child mask. Maybe he'll try out for the school play, even though he's afraid of failing.
Okay.
Or maybe he'll tell his parents that he's struggling in math class.
It's like everyone gets permission to be more real.
Yes, to be less perfect and more human.
I love that.
And as they embrace those imperfections, they might actually find that they connect with each other on a deeper level.
It's pretty amazing to think that. Just by changing the way they talk to each other, they could really change their whole future.
It is. But you might be wondering, how do we know this stuff actually works?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Is there proof that SFT makes a difference?
Yeah.
Absolutely. There have been so many studies showing that SFT can be really effective for all kinds of family issues, from communication problems to behavioral problems in kids. It's not a quick fix, but it's an approach that's been proven to help families build stronger relationships.
So it's not just a bunch of theories.
No, it's backed by science.
There's actual research behind it.
Yes, and it's not just about fixing problems either. It's about helping families reach their full potential, creating a more loving and supportive environment where everyone can thrive.
This has been such an interesting deep dive. I feel like I've learned so much, not just about the Bensons, but about families in general. What's the one thing you hope our listeners take away from this?
I think the most important thing to remember is this. We're all part of systems, and those systems have a huge impact on our lives. But when we understand how they work, we can actually start to change them for the better.
So it's not about blaming people. It's about understanding the dynamic.
Exactly.
And then figuring out how to make things better.
And that can be really empowering, you know, because it means we're not stuck. We can create the kind of families and relationships that we want.
That's a great note to end on. So we've been talking about structural family therapy today and how it can help families like the Bensons. But what about us? What about our own families and relationships? We're all part of these systems. And maybe by understanding them a little better, we can start to create more connection, more understanding, more love in our own lives. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. We'll see you next time.